Story 1. I was attacked by a litter of 10-week-old puppies today. That was the closest thing I have experienced to pure joy and euphoria. Story 2. When I shave my legs and change my sheets in one night, I get to snuggle in a cozy, clean bed like a smooth little dolphin. It feels magical, tingly, and euphoric. Story 3. I experienced a runner's high after a 5-mile run in the army. I had never felt anything like it. Story 4. Holding urine for way too long and then urinating. Even better when drunk, but alas no drugs. Story 5. Going to a concert by a band or artist you really love and screaming along to the songs is like a spiritual experience. Story 6. A long walk with your favorite playlist and 0 notifications. Story 7. After rinsing a poison oak or poison ivy rash with very hot water, I experienced a head rush. My vision blurred, my knees almost buckled, and I felt a strong sensation in my groin similar to the head rush. Felt amazing. I had to limit how much I washed my hands because I wanted to do it again. Story 8. Have you ever dropped a bowling ball on your big toe? You'll see visions, baby. Story 9. Falling in love with the right person. Bringing a child into the world. Achieving a long-term goal that you have worked really hard on for years. Getting lost in a piece of music and briefly feeling an otherworldly connection that makes you feel larger than yourself. The satisfaction of making someone in your life happy because of something you did. Eating a favorite junk food for the first time in a year. Making love. Chasing and reaching an adrenaline rush. Story 10. Not using drugs helps. Getting into a state of euphoria is not too hard, and it happens more often before you try certain drugs. After you start abusing drugs, achieving euphoria without them is very hard for a while, at least in my experience. Story 11. Late-night workout while listening to music that takes you back to the good old days. Story 12. Having read the top 20 comments, I conclude that most have not experienced the euphoria of drugs. An orgasm comes close, but it only lasts a few seconds, whereas certain drugs can last several hours. I am not aware of anything that matches that feeling. I do not think the human body is designed for it. Perhaps a near-death experience? Story 13. Don't ever do drugs. At least then you won't know what you're missing. Story 14. Getting into bed after a really bad bout of insomnia and being so exhausted that I rub the tops of my feet on the sheets while lying on my belly right before I pass out. It's incredible. Story 15. I had a baby without any pain medication. The euphoria immediately afterward was intense. Story 16. Experience a spiritual awakening after completely messing up your life. Story 17. Extremely hot peppers boost endorphins and give a runner's high. I love all of them. Story 18. I have to say playing with other people in a band, creating your own music, and getting in the same vibe makes you communicate on a different level. Doing that live even to the smallest crowd or just to each other is amazing. Seeing a band and connecting to music in a spiritual way can be powerful. I found bands I'd never heard of and, by chance, was nearly in tears from the euphoria, the message, or simply the sound. There's nothing quite like it. Dancing is great, singing is great, and sometimes it's just having a perfect day at the beach with sun, ice cream, and no stress. Falling in love is wonderful. Getting into bed after a long day is bliss. Roller coasters are exhilarating. Euphoria is a great feeling, but I don't think it beats pure joy. Sometimes I just have to look at my son or daughter and they bring me so much joy. Their births weren't euphoric and getting married wasn't either. Joy is definitely the best feeling. Be yourself and do what you love to the best of your abilities. Remove negativity from your life, connect with like-minded people, and have fun. Story 19. Telling your crush you like them and they reciprocate is probably the closest I have ever been to a drug high. Story 20. I step away from my devices and go outside. I walk or run with no plan, just to see the world the way we were meant to see it, the way we evolved to see it. It does wonders for my mood and reminds me that we are part of something much bigger than the trivial things people worry about online. Story 21. Once, I felt euphoria while meditating. I have never reached that state again, probably because I stopped meditating regularly. Story 22. Look inward. Get honest with yourself about who you really are. Be curious about yourself. Face yourself. Face your fears. The peace after that is better than any drug. I have tried every drug. Story 23. Exercise mostly, but also drugs and sex. Sex is just exercise with extra steps. Story 24. The only way I have ever been able to get that kind of high is after prolonged physical activity like climbing a mountain. It is a great high. Story 25. I go for a nice long run, or I hold my daughter while she sleeps. Story 26. Telling a really good joke that makes people laugh uncontrollably. Bonus points if I did not think it was that funny. Story 27. Exercise, meditation, live music, protests, a good night with friends, acupuncture, petting a dog, hiking, cooking a good meal, helping a stranger. There are so many ways. Story 28. Walk across an international border or through customs with drugs strapped to your body. Story 29. 2 ways. My bull terrier climbing on me when I am lying down, licking my face, wagging his tail, and just being stupidly happy. A long solo bike ride of about 50 to 60 miles. Story 30. Playing music live with an audience. There is no better drug. Story 31. Plug something in on the first try in a pitch-black room. Story 32. Playing your own music in front of more than 10,000 people. The nerves and anxiety followed by a huge rush. Nothing like it. Story 33. Riding a motorcycle on good, twisty roads at relatively high speed. Feeling on the verge of something going wrong. Story 34. Reddit is so cringe. Falling in love and getting a tattoo. Damn, have you people ever actually done drugs? Or are you just yapping? Laughing my ass off. Story 35. Have you ever taken off your ski boots after a long day on the hill? For me, skiing in general does that. Story 36. Working out produces a sweet spot of physical exertion that is euphoric. Story 37. A short jog can get you going if you have never done it before. Sadly, the more you do it, the longer the jog must be to get the same feeling. Story 38. Sing, especially with a group. It doesn't matter if it is singing with a church choir, karaoke, winter caroling, or a group of drunk people singing on the subway. It's all good. Story 39. Some people cope by going shopping, and there are just as many men as women who do that. Others turn to gambling. If you have not tried it, learning something new can be just as therapeutic and may change your outlook on life. I have always loved making things, especially when someone is willing to pay for them. It does not have to be physical. It can be a computer script, a program, or a website. There is an amazing feeling when you create something that makes you feel good and someone else likes it too. Music fits into that as well. Making something real that you can hold can open up whole new kinds of love. Helping someone, or helping an animal such as a dog, cat, horse, or donkey, especially if they were scared or astray, is a special kind of happiness. Animals love without judgment. It is a shame that people are not always the same way. Story 40. That sensation I get when I hear a song for the first time and know it will be part of the soundtrack of my life. Story 41. I prefer sex for the overall experience, but an orgasm from a vibrator feels different. Story 42. Spin in circles very quickly in the park, then lie down in the grass. Story 43. Accomplishing a huge goal you thought was not achievable. Story 44. Skiing on perfect snow, whether you prefer powder or corduroy. Story 45. After an accident, all the adrenaline rushes in, but unfortunately it lasts only a few seconds. Story 46. Do a really intense workout, then have sex if possible, followed by a sauna and a cold plunge or shower in that order. You will feel amazing. Story 47. Winning a sporting event after a very difficult, close match. Story 48. Playing hockey, whether in an adult league or in pickup games, makes me euphoric from the endorphins after every game. It's like any good workout. Story 49. Orgasm, massage, great food, and dancing to your favorite music. Story 50. Music is the right song for the right mood, but I'm drunk at the moment. Story 51. A brisk climb up and down the approximately 200-foot clay cliffs around a nearby lake several times during an afternoon hike worked for me until my knees could no longer manage it. Now I climb through ravines at a more moderate angle that my knees can handle. Intense focus, looking for handholds and footholds and mentally planning the route, chases all the noise from my mind. The risk of slipping or falling helps keep me focused because I do not use ropes. I always finish the hike feeling happy, my mind clear and rejuvenated. Story 52. There is something about a sunrise that gives me a boost of energy and excitement. It reminds me of going on vacation. Story 53. Working extremely hard at something and then achieving that goal after years of failure is especially moving. It is even more intense when it is a defining moment, such as winning a championship or another major achievement. Story 54. I am paraplegic and cannot feel anything below my chest. I have a hand cycle and push myself to get as far into nature as possible. Before, my happy place was hiking for days into the wilderness. Now I may only get a few miles into the woods, but I love it. Story 55. I attended a sound bath in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Blindfolded, the drums and other instruments felt tactile. I experienced the notes rather than simply hearing them. It was an hour of tactile euphoria. I wish I could remember the name of the man who played and facilitated the sound bath, because I would attend again to see if the euphoria could be replicated. Story 56. Pump iron. Don't just work out for 30 minutes. Work out for a couple of hours, get the burn, and hit the weights relentlessly. You will feel it. Story 57. Solve a really tricky problem that has been bugging you for ages. Story 58. Hanging out with my baby 100%, especially smelling his noggin. Story 59. I love having a great workout, then eating my favorite dinner and dessert, getting into clean sheets, watching Netflix in bed, and sleeping in. Cuddling with my dog on the floor also gives me that feeling. Story 60. I get it from hugging my partner or cuddling my dogs. I also get it after a really good workout or a long run of about 10 kilometers. I recently went to Disneyland for the first time. That was probably the most euphoric experience of my life. Story 61. The principle of addiction is that if you feel euphoric, your brain will try to create balance by reducing the sensitivity of receptors associated with euphoria for homeostasis. Therefore, anything that creates euphoria can potentially lead to addiction. Conversely, if you train your brain to be bored and provide the opposite of euphoria, your brain may heighten receptors associated with euphoria to restore balance to your baseline. Story 62. Eat something that upsets your stomach, then go for a walk until you feel it. When you get home and sit on the toilet, the relief is nearly unmatched. Story 63. When I take a hot bath after a long day at work, there is that brief moment when I dunk my head under the water. Everything becomes quiet and the world fades away. Story 64. A friend convinced me to try ecstasy way back in 2001. I definitely had a reaction, but internally it was no different from when I used to do hours-long Tai Chi sessions. Maybe the batch was watered down. Maybe they started me on a relatively weak or safe drug. I do not know. The takeaway for me was that I already knew how to get this high. It only takes a bit of uninterrupted free time and some new age music playing in the background. It is cheaper too. Story 65. Order a new personal computer and wait for it to arrive, tracking it constantly. Story 66. I would say intense exercise or very genuinely bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, and sadism and masochism. Someone else already mentioned a runner's high, and something similar can also come from intense calisthenics from personal experience. I imagine a good weightlifting session can have the same effect. For bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, and sadism and masochism activities, it depends. From my experience, after a good flogging, paddling, or caning, the body releases endorphins that can be quite heady. If you cannot handle pain, it might not be the best choice. Or you might be a dominant or a sadist. There is also nothing nicer than being called a good submissive and being rewarded for your efforts. I have never used stimulants. Liquor is my strongest vice, and alcohol can feel euphoric. Again, if it interests you, it does not have to be sexual in nature. Story 67. Music. Certain songs or pieces evoke a very strong sense of euphoria for me, either because they are so amazing or because they are enhanced by past memories. Feels very real sometimes. Also, beating hard bosses in Souls games makes me laugh out loud. Story 68. Try to enjoy the small things. Yesterday, I had two of my closest friends at my home. We worked together, made food, and laughed. Taking a brief moment to savor that is the closest I will get. Story 69. I swear to God, if someone says exercise, I am going to do absolutely nothing. Story 70. Nature. Going outside to watch the leaves fall and observe birds and squirrels. Story 71. After a 10 or 11-hour shift, when you are very sore, slipping into the most comfortable bed ever feels euphoric. Story 72. Weight training can give you a pump that feels euphoric. Arnold Schwarzenegger famously described it in Pumping Iron. Story 73. My wife and I get a boost from hosting successful parties. When we plan something special and everything goes well, everyone enjoys themselves because the plan came together. It is always such a thrill and lasts for days too. Story 74. Go somewhere you have never been and do something you have never done. Your brain likes it and will reward you with endorphins. Story 75. The boss told me today that I am doing a great job. Story 76. Human connection and contact without the worry of negative judgment. I took a workshop on it at Isalin. Story 77. Listen, I've smoked, drank, and fucked. But let me tell you, there is no better feeling than being able to easily dunk on a regulation height rim. Story 78. Sit on a plane and feel the takeoff power. Build an honest, successful career. It feels exhilarating. Ride a skateboard, a bicycle motocross bike, or another trick sport and practice until you can perform epic tricks. Go skydiving. Discover magical art, fashion, and home and lifestyle products. Get professional styling so you feel confident. When that feeling fades, visit your stylist and change your look. Story 79. Buy a dog. Walk it, love it, dance with it, and sleep with it. This is the way. Story 80. Running or fucking. Just don't try both simultaneously. Story 81. I live a good, clean life. I start my day by thanking God for the day. At night, I thank Him again for allowing me to live another decent day. I try to treat others as I would like to be treated. I ask God to remove my defects of character and shortcomings so that I can be of better service to Him and to others. Story 82. Climb an extremely arduous mountain, perhaps over 4,000 meters on a multi-day ascent. Feel at the top more powerful than any drug. I have tried them all. Watch your wife give birth. Story 83. Enter a cold creek wearing jeans, kneel, and urinate in your pants. Feels amazing. Story 84. Having a baby has been the highest feeling of my life. Seeing my children for the first time made me laugh, cry, and smile from ear to ear. Story 85. Getting a tattoo, having sex, riding my motorcycle, and working out. Story 86. I find the autonomous sensory meridian response can be quite effective once you figure out what triggers it for you. Story 87. Completing a project successfully challenged me, tested my abilities, and taught me new skills. Story 88. Witness your child being born and coming into the world. Story 89. If you have brain chemistry like mine and feel fed up, listen to something that connects to your emotions and be alone with your thoughts. For something more intense, imagine falling in love. That hits hard. Story 90. A pre-party before a larger event can be the highlight. Anticipation of the main event often makes the pre-party more enjoyable than the event itself. Story 91. Very long and intense meditation. It takes a lot of dedication to get there, and it's extremely boring at first, but it's worth it if you do it regularly. Story 92. Cheese, bananas, and yogurt together used to give me the most realistic dreams I ever had. Consuming a large amount of sugar can also make you feel almost drugged. The easiest option is probably masturbation, I guess. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.